Hello, everyone, and welcome to English at Ease, where we explore a variety of different topics, all in a slow and simple way, so that you can learn English at your own unique learning level. In today's video, we are going to be telling a story. We are going to be hearing and listening to a story about a character from Greek myths. The ancient Greeks told many different stories about many different characters. And in today's story, we are going to be hearing about one of the most important, one of the most popular characters from these stories. The character that we are going to be learning about today is named Odysseus. The story of Odysseus is a sad story, but it's also a happy story. And it's one of the stories that the ancient Greeks loved most. It's one of the stories that when the ancient Greeks wanted to listen to something to entertain them, when the ancient Greeks wanted to listen to something to have some fun, this was one of the most popular stories that they told. In the story of Odysseus, we are going to hear about a man who is lost and cannot find his home. And we are going to learn about all of the different challenges, all of the different problems that he had to face while he was trying to find his home. Now, in order to understand the story of Odysseus, we have to start at the very beginning. We have to start at the very beginning of the story. The story starts with a very famous war called the Trojan War. During the Trojan War, the Greeks sailed, they got on boats and sailed to a city called Troy. They fought against the city of Troy for 10 years. For 10 years, the Greeks and the Trojans fought. For 10 years, the Greeks and the Trojans fought with each other until the Greeks beat the Trojans. Until the Trojans were defeated by the Greeks. After the Greeks won the war, after the Trojans lost the war, the Greeks wanted to go back. They wanted to return to their homes. They wanted to return to their families. They wanted to leave Troy and sail. They wanted to go back to Greece, to their homes, to their families. Now, most of the Greeks were able to do this pretty easily. It wasn't super hard for most of the Greeks to sail back to their homes, except for one Greek named Odysseus. And this is the character that we are going to be talking about today. Odysseus was a Greek king who fought in the Trojan War. He was a king. He ruled over a kingdom. He was in charge of a little army an army of soldiers. He had soldiers who listened to him and did what he told them to do. He was in charge of these soldiers. Odysseus was one of the most important of all of the Greeks fighting during this war. The reason why Odysseus was so important was because he was very intelligent. He was very intelligent. Odysseus was the smartest of all of the Greeks. He was the smartest of all of the Greeks. Odysseus was so smart that he was one of the most important people to win the Trojan War because it was his ideas that helped the Greeks beat the Trojans. Now, Odysseus, like all of the other Greeks, wanted to go back home after winning the war. After the Greeks won the war, Odysseus wanted to go home. He wanted to go see his wife, whom he loved. He wanted to go see his people, who he ruled over as their king. He wanted to go back to his home. Now, Odysseus and his soldiers got on their boat. They got on their boat and started sailing home. As they were sailing home, they got a little bit tired. They got a little bit tired and a little bit hungry, and they wanted something to eat. So they decided to stop for a little bit and go find some food and a place to rest a little bit. They found an island, and it looked like there was somebody who lived there. There was people who lived on this island. Odysseus thought there must have been people living on this island because there was sheep. There was sheep on the island. Odysseus and his soldiers got off of their boat and started looking for people on the island. Eventually, Odysseus and his soldiers found a cave with some sheep outside, of the cave. Odysseus and his soldiers thought somebody probably lived inside the cave. So they decided to stop and wait inside the cave until the person returned, until the owner of the sheep, the person who owned the sheep, could return. And maybe this person would be very friendly. Maybe this person would be very nice and would want to give them food to eat. So Odysseus and his soldiers thought, maybe we should stay here until this person comes back, until this person comes to their home, and he can give us some food to eat. He can give us some food to eat. That's what Odysseus and his soldiers were hoping for. Now, things didn't go so well. Odysseus and his soldiers were kind of wrong about what they expected. Eventually, the owner, the person who owned the sheep, returned to the cave, but the owner was not a regular person. He was not a regular human being. The owner was a cyclops. A cyclops is a very scary monster. It's a very scary creature in Greek myths, in these Greek stories. A cyclops is like a person, but giant. Like a person, but huge. A cyclops is like a person, but very, very big. Much bigger than any person in the world. The other strange thing about a cyclops, the other thing about a cyclops that's a little bit weird and different from a normal person, is that a cyclops has one eye. Normal people have two eyes. One, two. A cyclops has one eye. This one eye is at the center, in the middle of his head. Now, this cyclops was not very friendly. He wasn't very friendly like Odysseus and his soldiers hoped. He wasn't very nice. He was very angry that they had come into his home. So the Cyclops took a big rock. He grabbed a big rock and put it in front of the opening of the entrance of his cave so that the soldiers couldn't leave. So that they couldn't leave. They were stuck inside. He had trapped them inside of the cave. Every day, the Cyclops came back to the cave, and opened it up. He opened it up and saw the soldiers, who were very afraid. They were very afraid. They were extremely afraid of this huge monster. And every day, he grabbed two soldiers. He grabbed two people every day and ate them. He grabbed two people and ate them every single day. Now, eventually, Odysseus was able to look and find a stick in the cave. And he took that stick and he sharpened that stick and made a weapon. He made a weapon out of that stick so that he could fight the Cyclops. When the Cyclops returned, when the Cyclops came back to the cave, Odysseus grabbed his stick, his weapon. He grabbed his weapon and he stabbed the Cyclops. He fought with the Cyclops. And eventually, he stabbed the Cyclops in his eye, in his one eye. The Cyclops was in pain. This hurt the Cyclops, and the Cyclops was blind. The Cyclops went blind. The Cyclops couldn't see anything. He couldn't see anything because his eye had been stabbed. His eye had been stabbed, so he couldn't see anything. Odysseus and his soldiers, the ones who were still alive, because some of them had died, but the ones who were still alive were able to run away because the Cyclops couldn't see. So Odysseus and his soldiers went back to their ship. They went back to their boat and left. They sailed away. Now, you might expect that everything now is going to be perfectly okay with Odysseus. He can sail back home. He can go back home. Not exactly. Things get much worse for Odysseus throughout the story. For Odysseus and for his soldiers, things don't get better immediately. Things get worse. Because one of the Greek gods who people worshipped, one of the gods who had special powers was named Poseidon. Poseidon was the god of water. He was the god of the seas. Poseidon had powers over water. He could use the water and change the water however he wanted because he was the god of the water. Poseidon was very mad at Odysseus. Poseidon did not like Odysseus because the Cyclops that Odysseus had hurt, the Cyclops that Odysseus had stabbed in the eye, was Poseidon's son. That was Poseidon's child. Aww. The Cyclops was the son of the god of water, Poseidon. So Poseidon made it very difficult for Odysseus to go home. He made it very hard for Odysseus. He used the water to keep Odysseus from being able to get home. He made Odysseus lost at sea. Poseidon did not want Odysseus to be able to get back home. So Odysseus couldn't go back home. One of the places that Odysseus went to was an island, a place that is surrounded by water, a land that is surrounded on every side by water. When Odysseus arrived there, he discovered that there was only one person living there. There was only one person living on this island. There wasn't cities there or large groups of people. There was just one person living there. The person living there was a woman named Calypso. Calypso was a goddess that was living on the island. Now, when Odysseus saw Calypso, he thought she was very beautiful. She was a very beautiful woman. And Calypso, when she saw Odysseus, thought he was very handsome. She thought he looked very nice as well. Calypso wanted Odysseus to stay on the island with her and live with her because she was alone on the island and she was sad that she was alone and she wanted somebody to stay with her, to keep her company, to talk to her, to spend time with her, to walk with her, to do all sorts of things with her, and she wanted Odysseus to be that person. She fell in love with Odysseus while he was on the island, and she wanted Odysseus to stay with her. Odysseus didn't really want that. Odysseus liked Calypso, but Odysseus already had a wife. He already had a wife. He was already married to somebody else. Odysseus wanted to leave the island. He wanted to leave and go back home. He wanted to go find his wife again and be back home. This was a problem because Calypso didn't want this. Calypso wanted him to stay. Now, Calypso was a goddess, which meant Calypso had powers. Now, because Calypso had powers, because Calypso was a goddess, Odysseus couldn't just leave. He couldn't just leave the island and go home. So he had to stay. Calypso told him, "You have to stay with me." Calypso said, "You can't leave this island. You have to stay with me." So Odysseus had to stay with Calypso for 7 years. 7 years Odysseus was on the island living with Calypso. Now this made Odysseus very sad. Odysseus became very sad because he wanted to go home and see his wife. He didn't want to stay with Calypso. He wanted to see his wife. Aww. Now eventually, another goddess named Athena, who liked Odysseus, Athena really liked Odysseus, she cared about Odysseus, saw that Odysseus was sad, and she came up with an idea. She had an idea for how to get Odysseus off the island. Athena talked to Zeus, who was the king of the gods. Zeus was higher than all the other gods. He was more powerful than all the other gods. And she asked Zeus, "Zeus, can you please get Odysseus off the island? Can you please tell Calypso? Can you please tell Calypso that she needs to let Odysseus leave?" After Athena asked Zeus to tell Calypso to let Odysseus leave, Zeus sent someone to go and tell Calypso, "Calypso, you need to let Odysseus leave." Because Zeus was the king of the gods, because Zeus was the most powerful, Calypso couldn't say no. Calypso had to agree. She had to let Odysseus leave because Zeus was king of the gods. He was the most powerful. Zeus was more powerful than Calypso. So Calypso let Odysseus leave. Eventually, Odysseus was able to find his home. He was able to find his home, but things weren't perfect yet. There was still a problem when Odysseus arrived home. When Odysseus found his home, he found a pretty big problem. When he tried to go see his wife, he realized that there was a bunch of different men that were living in his home, and all of these men were trying to marry Odysseus's wife. They were trying to convince Odysseus's wife to marry them. All of these men wanted to be the husband of Odysseus's wife. The reason for this is because most people thought Odysseus was dead. They thought Odysseus had died at sea because Odysseus had been gone for 10 years. Odysseus's wife, whose name was Penelope, didn't think Odysseus was dead. Penelope believed that her husband, Odysseus, was still alive. She didn't think her husband was dead. So she delayed. She tried to get these men to wait and wait and wait. She told these men, just wait a little bit longer, and then I will marry one of you. She told them just to wait a little bit longer. Now these men waited and waited and waited, but eventually Odysseus returned home. Odysseus found his home and found all of these men living in his home trying to marry his wife. So Odysseus was very angry. He was very angry. And Odysseus started to fight all of these men. And he started to kill all of these men. Odysseus got a bow, and he started to shoot. He started to shoot all of these men and fight with them. And eventually, he killed all of these men who were trying to marry his wife. After all of these men were dead, after he had killed all of these men, Odysseus was able to be with his wife again. They were able to be together again. They were able to be married again. And Odysseus was also able to be the king of his kingdom again. So after 10 long years, Odysseus was able to come home, able to rule his kingdom again, and to be with his wife again. So the story of Odysseus is a sad story because he was gone so long and because he went through a lot of challenges. There was a lot of problems that he faced while he was trying to find his home. But it's also a happy story because in the end, Odysseus is able to find his home and he's able to be with his wife again. Now, the story of Odysseus was one of the most important stories to the ancient Greeks. They loved to tell this story. And in the full story, there's a lot more to it. I have just told you a short version of this story. The story is much longer. There's a lot more things that Odysseus does in this story. So if you would like to learn more, you can find more to the story of Odysseus. There's a lot more interesting stuff that happens in this story. Anyways, I hope this video was helpful for you, and I hope you were able to get some good listening practice for your English language learning, as well as learn a little bit more about this very interesting ancient Greek story. Thank you very much.